Chicago winter mornings are mercilessly cold. Catalina Morales groaned as she clocked out of her shift, her feet aching from standing for 8 straight hours. The last few hours at Murphy's Diner had been brutal with the breakfast rush and 3 tables of truckers who left terrible tips. The kitchen was finally quiet after the morning chaos, grease still hanging in the air. "Good work tonight, Kat. You saved us with that last-minute double," said Olivia Chen, the shift supervisor, counting the register. Catalina managed a tired smile. Working at this 24-hour diner for 3 years, she had become the go-to waitress for the graveyard shift. "Thanks, Olivia. At least we made it through without any drama," Catalina said. In the employee bathroom, Catalina changed out of her stained uniform into a worn hoodie and jeans, then checked her phone. There was a message from Evan Lawrence. "Need to discuss Diego's future. Important business opportunity. Can we meet this week?" It said. Catalina stared at the message, her stomach twisting. "Sure. What's this about?" she asked. Evan's messages always made her nervous these days. Her ex-fiancé had been contacting her more frequently, talking about Diego's education and future. She trusted his intentions for their son, but something felt different lately. She walked to her beat-up Honda and drove through the empty streets. Snow began to fall, making the cracked windshield even harder to see through. Their apartment in Chicago's South Side was a cramped 2-bedroom on the 2nd floor of an old building. As Catalina climbed the stairs, she could hear her neighbor's TV blaring through the thin walls. "Mom, you're home." 14-year-old Diego was sitting at their small kitchen table, textbooks spread everywhere. He was eating cereal from a chipped bowl, his homework covering every inch of available space. Catalina kissed his forehead, smelling the familiar scent of his hair. "Morning, baby. Getting ready for school?" she asked. "Yes, but this algebra is killing me," he answered. Catalina pulled up the wobbly chair next to her son. Diego was smart, especially in science and history, but math had always been his weakness. "Where's Vivian?" Diego asked. "Probably still sleeping. She was up until 3 a.m. working on her Instagram posts," I said. Diego opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it again. Catalina noticed but decided not to push. Her son had been acting strange lately, more quiet than usual. She figured it was just teenage stuff. "Is Vivian still here?" he asked. "Yes, she's crashing on the couch. She said she had some late-night content creation to do," she said. Catalina's sister Vivian had been staying with them for 6 months now. She was trying to make it as a beauty influencer with her 15,000 Instagram followers. The income was unpredictable, mostly free products and small sponsorship deals. Catalina wanted to support her sister's dreams, even though money was tight. "Time for school, Diego. The bus comes in 10 minutes, Catalina said, glancing at the microwave clock. Diego shoved his homework into his backpack and grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Catalina handed him a brown bag with a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. "Have a good day. Come straight home after school, okay?" "Mom, I might be late today. Mike's helping me with algebra at the library." Catalina hugged her son tight, breathing in his familiar scent before letting him go. After Diego left, she walked quietly to the living room. Vivian was curled up on the fold-out couch, her phone charging on the coffee table next to expensive-looking makeup products. Ring lights and camera equipment were scattered around the small space. Catalina sighed. Her sister was working hard, but the apartment felt more cramped every day. She tiptoed to her bedroom, trying not to wake Vivian. Sleep after the night shift was precious, but her mind was racing. Something felt different lately. Evan's increased contact, Vivian's mysterious late-night activities, Diego's unusual silence. Still, Catalina told herself everything was fine. Everyone was just trying to figure out their lives. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she'd face them like she always did. 3 weeks later, Catalina was having lunch in the cafeteria. Her colleague Diana sat across from her, placing a coffee down and whispering, "Catalina, are you all right? You look tired lately." Catalina looked up and forced a smile. Yes, I'm fine, just busy. In reality, she was far from fine. The subtle changes in the family atmosphere were troubling her. Really, how are things at home? Is Vivian still living with you? Diana's questions seemed to carry some implication. Yes, she still is. She seems to be trying to get her life back on track lately, Catalina replied. Catalina thought about her sister. Vivian had clearly changed recently. Previously, she had been unable to recover from the pain of divorce and often stayed in her room, but now she spent time on makeup every morning, bought new clothes, and went out more frequently. When Catalina asked, "Has something good happened?" Vivian deflected the conversation saying, "I'm just trying to think positively about life." Catalina looked into Diana's eyes. "Do you know something?" she asked. Diana shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "No, not really, I'm just concerned," Diana said. Catalina sensed that there was truth hidden in her friend's words, but she didn't pursue it further. She remembered Diego. Her son had changed too. After returning from school, he used to eat snacks in the kitchen while telling her about his day, but now he often silently retreated to his room. The previous evening, Catalina had knocked on Diego's door. "Diego, dinner time," Catalina said. "I'm not hungry," came her son's voice from inside. Catalina opened the door and entered Diego's room. He was sitting on the bed, hugging his knees. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Catalina asked. Diego didn't look up and shrugged. "Nothing," he said. "Did something happen at school? Are you being bullied?" Catalina asked. "No, it's just..." He stumbled over his words. "I don't understand grown-up business," Diego said. Catalina frowned at those words. "What do you mean?" Catalina asked. Diego fell silent and said in a small voice, "Nothing." Catalina was brought back to reality by Diana's voice. "Everyone have noticed changes in you too. You're usually so careful, but yesterday you almost made a mistake in taking orders," Diana said. Catalina blushed. Indeed, yesterday she had lacked concentration. She had almost taken different orders by mistake. Fortunately, the chief noticed her mistake and corrected it. "I'm sorry, I'll be more careful," Catalina said. Diana took her friend's hand. "Catalina, if something's wrong, why not talk about it?" Catalina took a deep breath, hesitating whether to confide her worries, but she didn't know what to say. She herself didn't yet understand the situation. "I'm really fine, just a bit tired," Catalina said. That night, Catalina was preparing for her night shift. So she asked Vivian to handle Diego's dinner. "Of course, sis, don't worry," Vivian answered cheerfully. Catalina found her sister's behavior strange, so different from before. She who had once seemed depressed now appeared unusually bright. Meanwhile, her son seemed to be dragging some dark shadow. Catalina couldn't understand what was happening in her family. Arriving at the diner, her colleague Olivia greeted her with a worried face. "Catalina, do you have a moment?" Olivia asked. They moved to a corner of the kitchen. Olivia looked around and began speaking in a low voice. "About your ex-fiancé," Olivia said. Catalina's heart raced. "Evan? What happened?" Catalina asked. "Last Saturday I was picking up groceries near the north side, and I saw him. Evan was with some woman, it was Vivian," Olivia said. Catalina's voice caught in her throat. "Olivia," Catalina said. Olivia looked startled. "You already knew?" Olivia said. "No, I just..." Catalina struggled to find words. She had felt something was off but hadn't wanted to face it. Her ex-fiancé and her sister. The betrayal cut too deep to even think about. They looked really close, Olivia chose her words carefully. "Walking arm in arm, sharing dessert at some fancy place. If you didn't know, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it," she said. Catalina leaned against the cold metal prep counter. Everything was starting to make sense now. Evan's frequent texts about Diego's future, Vivian's mysterious new confidence, and her son's words about adults being complicated. It's okay, Olivia. I needed to know, Catalina said. During her shift that night, Catalina's mind was spinning. She tried to focus on taking orders and serving customers, but her family drama consumed her thoughts. What should she do now? Should she confront them directly or try to find out more? If Evan and Vivian were really behind her back, everything would fall apart. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed with an urgent notification. Diego had posted something on Instagram and tagged her. Catalina felt her stomach drop as she opened the app. The post was a screenshot of text messages. Multiple conversations between Evan and Vivian were displayed. "Mom needs to see this," Diego had written as the caption. "I can't keep lying anymore," he said. Catalina's hands shook as she read the messages. Plans about Diego's private school transfer, discussions about Catalina's situation, and worst of all, romantic exchanges between Evan and Vivian. Her world crashed down around her. I need to go home," she said. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the diner. Catalina drove through the empty streets with tears blurring her vision. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. She burst through the apartment door. Diego ran to his mother. "Mom, I'm sorry. I found their messages on Vivian's phone when she left it charging. They've been planning this for weeks," Diego said. Catalina felt like the floor was disappearing beneath her feet. Her ex-fiancé and her sister, plotting behind her back. And her son, carrying this horrible secret. "Diego, baby." Catalina wrapped her arms around her son. "You should have told me sooner," Catalina said. "I wanted to, but they said it would hurt you." "They said they were trying to help our family," Diego said. Catalina's heart broke for her son. At 14, he had been forced to keep adult secrets. She couldn't stand it. "Mom, they want to take me away from you," Diego whispered. Catalina felt the blood drain from her face. Her ears were ringing. Everything clicked into place. Evan's sudden interest in Diego's education, Vivian's mysterious confidence, her son's strange behavior. The truth was right in front of her. "Evan and my sister," she could barely speak the words. Diego nodded through his tears. "They've been planning this for months. They think you can't take care of me properly because of money," he said. Catalina's world collapsed. Her legs gave out and she sank onto the couch. The betrayal of her ex-fiancé and her sister, and the burden her innocent son had been carrying. "Are they?" she finally managed to ask. "They're still out there," Diego said, pointing to the balcony. "They've been talking for hours about custody papers and moving me to a better school district," Diego said. Catalina closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her face. "My baby, you knew all this time, you've been carrying this secret alone," Catalina said. Diego quietly said, "I found this too." He handed her a crumpled piece of paper from his backpack. Catalina unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a printed email exchange between Evan and a lawyer. Subject line, "Custody modification based on mother's financial instability." The email detailed plans to prove Catalina was an unfit mother due to her low income and unstable housing situation. Catalina held the paper against her chest and cried. Her heart was breaking. Fear for her son's future and rage at their betrayal. Most painful was knowing Diego had suffered in silence. A 14-year-old boy, forced to keep adult secrets about losing his mother. She couldn't take it. "I need to talk to them," Catalina said, wiping her eyes. Diego grabbed her arm. "Mom, are you sure you can handle this?" Diego asked. "I'm your mother, and this is our family. Even if they betrayed us." Diego nodded and stayed close to her side. Catalina walked to the balcony door first. She put her hand on Diego's shoulder and squeezed gently. "Diego, I'm here. No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. "You were so brave telling me, but you don't have to protect me anymore," Catalina said. Next, she looked at Vivian through the glass. Her sister, who she had supported through everything, who had betrayed her trust. Catalina's heart was full of conflicting emotions. "Why, Vivian?" "We're family," she said quietly to herself. Finally, she stared at Evan. Years of history together, the father of her child, and now this revealed betrayal. What happened to the man who promised to love our son? She whispered, but got no answer. Catalina turned to Diego. Whatever happens next, I want you to know the truth. Especially you, baby, you deserve to hear it from me, Catalina said. A week passed since the confrontation. Catalina was in Diego's bedroom, watching the afternoon sun filter through their small window. Her son had been staying home from school, claiming he felt sick, but she knew it was emotional exhaustion. He spent most of his time in bed, staring at his phone or sleeping. There were small signs he was processing everything. He had started eating again and occasionally asked questions about what would happen next. It was a tiny glimmer of hope. Catalina had called in sick to work for 3 days straight. Her co-workers at the diner were worried and kept texting her. Penelope, her neighbor, had been especially supportive, offering to bring groceries and check on them. You need to eat something, Cat. I'll stay with Diego if you want to get some air, Penelope said during one of her visits. Catalina managed a weak smile. Thanks, but I'm okay. I want to be here when he's ready to talk, Catalina said. Meanwhile, Evan and Vivian had been trying to contact her for days. They had left dozens of voicemails and text messages, but Catalina hadn't responded. However, today she decided she needed answers, for Diego's sake. Diego, I'm going to step outside for a few minutes. I'll be right back. She kissed her son's forehead and walked to the living room. Standing by their small window, Catalina's emotions were all over the place. Anger, hurt, and above all, the deep sting of betrayal. However, she tried to stay calm, not to let her feelings cloud her judgment about what was best for Diego. She took a deep breath and called Evan's number. After 2 rings, he picked up. His voice sounded strained and guilty. Catalina, thank you for calling, he said. She could hear Vivian's voice in the background. Why? Catalina asked coldly as soon as he answered. There was silence on the other end. Catalina, let me explain, Evan finally said. At first, I was just trying to help Vivian with her career. She was struggling financially, he said. Help? Catalina's voice shook. You call planning to take my son away helping? Catalina asked. She heard Vivian crying in the background. Cat, I'm so sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. When I realized my feelings, Evan said. And Diego found out, Catalina interrupted, her voice rising. Do you understand what you put him through? What he saw and heard? Catalina asked. The truth came out in pieces. 2 months ago, Diego had come home early from school when his math study group was cancelled. As he quietly climbed the stairs to their apartment, he heard voices from the living room. When he peeked around the corner, he saw Evan and Vivian sitting close together on the couch, holding hands and looking at legal documents. Diego froze when he heard them talking. Evan noticed Diego listening and quickly tried to cover. Diego, hey, buddy, this is just adult stuff. Don't worry about it, okay? And don't mention this to your mom, Evan said. Since then, Diego had been carrying this terrible secret. He loved his mother but was terrified that telling the truth would tear apart what little family stability they had. He became withdrawn, barely ate his meals, and his grades started slipping at school. The night he finally broke, Diego couldn't handle the lies anymore and confronted both Evan and Vivian. He threatened to tell Catalina everything he had seen and heard. A panicked Evan tried to convince him over the phone while Vivian was listening on speaker. The conversation had escalated into a shouting match. Because of your selfishness, my son became the victim, Catalina said, her voice breaking. All he wanted was to protect me from the truth, Catalina said. She could hear Evan crying on the other end. I never wanted to hurt Diego. I thought we could work something out that would be better for everyone, Evan said. But he was hurt, Catalina said flatly. Vivian, are you there? Catalina asked. I'm here, Cat, Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. How could you do this to us? Catalina asked. He's been having nightmares. He thinks it's his fault, she said to Vivian. The line went quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do about the custody thing? Catalina asked. I'm dropping it, Evan said immediately. I've already called my lawyer. Whatever papers were filed, I'm withdrawing them, Evan said. It's not about the legal stuff, Catalina said quietly. You broke Diego's trust. You made him lie to me, Catalina said. Cat. Vivian's voice was shaking. We never meant for it to go this far. It just happened, but we never wanted to hurt you or Diego, Vivian said. Catalina looked toward Diego's room, thinking about the sister she had supported through everything, the sister who had betrayed her trust, and now wanted forgiveness. I need time to figure out what's best for Diego and me, Catalina said. She ended the call without saying goodbye. In the quiet apartment, she leaned against the wall and took several deep breaths, pushing down her anger and hurt. She walked back to Diego's room. When she opened the door, she found her son sitting up in bed. Diego's heart nearly stopped when he saw her face. What happened, Mom? He asked anxiously. I talked to them, Catalina said, sitting on the edge of his bed. Diego looked at her with wide, worried eyes. Am I in trouble? He asked. No, baby, you're not, Catalina took his hand. Do you understand what's happening? Catalina asked. Diego nodded slowly. Mom, his voice was small. Catalina could see he wanted to say more but was holding back. She sat beside her son and waited. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner about Dad and Vivian, Diego said. Catalina gently brushed his hair back. You did nothing wrong, Diego. I'm sorry you had to carry that secret alone. But it's over now, and I'm here. What about Dad and Vivian? Diego asked. They made their choices, baby, but our life will be different from now on. We're going to figure this out together, Catalina said. Diego closed his eyes, looking relieved for the first time in weeks. Even though he was still processing everything, he squeezed his mother's hand tightly. I want to stay with you, Mom, he said in a small voice. Catalina pulled her son into a gentle hug. We're still a family, Diego, just the two of us. And we're going to be okay, she said to Diego. One Sunday morning, a year later, Catalina was flipping pancakes in their small kitchen. From Diego's room came the sound of him video chatting with friends. He had bounced back completely and was thriving at his new high school. Catalina felt the warm sunlight streaming through their apartment window and thought about how far they'd come. The first few months had been rough. Finding a new place to live and Diego working through everything with a counselor. But they had made it through, step by step. Catalina had managed to get promoted to shift supervisor at the diner. She still worked nights, but now she had benefits and could spend more time with Diego during the day. Mom, are Max and his dad still coming to the community center thing today? Diego wandered into the kitchen. Yes, they'll be there, Catalina smiled. Alexander Taylor was a volunteer coordinator she had met at a parenting support group, and he had a son Diego's age, Max. Both single parents, they had slowly built a friendship based on understanding each other's struggles. Max is cool, Diego said honestly. I got a text from Dad. Evan had moved to Denver after everything fell apart. He was in therapy and had started taking responsibility for his actions. He texted Diego every few weeks and called on holidays. It would take years to rebuild trust, but at least he was making an effort. Dad says he's coaching Little League now, Diego mentioned. Catalina nodded. That's good for him, she said. As she was cleaning up after breakfast, someone knocked on the door. When she opened it, Vivian was standing there with a small potted plant. Can we talk? She asked quietly. Vivian had finished a program for people struggling with social media addiction and was working at a community center helping other young women. She had written Catalina several long letters over the past months. 2 months ago, Catalina had finally written back, and last week they had their first phone conversation. Diego, Vivian wants to see you, Catalina called out. Diego came out slowly, then gave Vivian a careful hug. How's school going? Are you still good at science? Vivian asked. Catalina went back to the kitchen and made 2 cups of coffee. Rebuilding trust with her sister wasn't simple, but they were both trying. She was surprised by her own capacity for forgiveness. What had once felt impossible now seemed manageable. It wasn't about being weak, it was about being strong enough to move forward. That night, after Diego had gone to bed, Catalina wrote in her journal. Vivian came by today, which would have been unthinkable a year ago. The hurt is still there, but we're learning to heal. Life has a way of surprising you, but what really matters is whether you can find the strength to keep going after everything falls apart. She looked out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. The Chicago skyline looked different from their new neighborhood, but somehow more hopeful. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she and Diego would face them together. Every ending really is a new beginning. Catalina held on to that thought as she turned off the light.